frustration, anger. These are normal emotions. They're part of the human experience. If we were to take away those chemical processes out of your body, you wouldn't survive. The average happy person, they say, is apparently, by self-report, only happy for about 60% of the day, and that even they have many overlapping symptoms. Stress for up to half of it, anger for up to 35%, worry, and the whole gamut and array of everything else you ever hear. There's at least 8 basic emotions, and frustration is certainly there in the background. We have this thing called a negativity bias, where we worry. It's the brain's natural state. No one really wakes up happy. They wake up with a sense of anticipation. They may have already planned for their goals and they just get going, but it's not necessarily happy. So we've got to find some way to manage these emotions, because if we've been suppressing them for a long time, like putting off the anger because it's not socially appropriate and putting it aside, that's like shaking up a Coke bottle and putting it to the side. Eventually, it's going to explode. So, whether it's intermittent explosive disorder or a habit of more regular anger, this is probably the relaxation for you. It's, of course, no substitute for individualized professional help from a registered practitioner. So, if it's a little more complicated than this simplicity, please go and find someone to talk with. That said, while anger's such a shameful emotion, it really is that common that we have to train ourselves out of it. It's like a reaction. If there's those spots where on the TV shows and the movies you see the doctor hit the elbow or the knee and the arm bounces up. Since we were children, we have frustrated outbursts. So how do we overcome a reflexive action like that? Well, we need to do training. Just like an athlete who's training for the Olympics. It might be 5-10 years until they have to use that skill. But to overcome instinctive reflexes and create new preferred options, they have to train every day. That's not going to be as necessary here. It's going to look like every couple of days for a few weeks, and that should be enough that you and those around you start to see a difference, and then continuing that for quite a period of time, because it takes 120 days of consistent effort to make a lifelong change. And because of that negativity bias, our brain will go back to old habits. So let's just explain a couple of other things before we step into a relaxation. There's 3 basic parts of our mind, a bit like the drama triangle that you see on TV as a plot mechanism. Like how, say, Mary might break up with Matt, and then she goes to Paul and says, "He was such an awful person," and Paul says, "Oh, yes, he is, and I've always been your friend." And then that night, Mary is texting Matt, and the next day they've demonized Paul and said, "You shouldn't have tried to take me away from him. You know nothing about the situation." The same thing happens in our mind. We have these emotional parts, like Mary, who feels like the victim, and this is not always sensible. It's, yes, egotistic and childish, but many of our beliefs form and our patterns, at least our automatic subconscious patterns, form in a manner like the 2-year-old brain. Those instinctive reactions are there. Then we have the normally operating part that says we should cope, we should be mature, we should go to work, we should be a good parent, we should be a good friend, whatever that may be. All the shoulds. That part, they often call the manager in parts therapy, tries to keep us balanced. But it can't always balance those strong emotions, which is why sometimes this part comes out that's a bit more reactive, that tries to defend those emotions. It might lead us to go and watch some Netflix series to avoid. It might lead us to go and engage in some other bad habit or to act out. and get frustrated. This part is a bit of a hero. They call it the firefighter in parts therapy. And it's a bit like Paul was in the example, trying to rescue Mary from Matt. But then these two parts, that managing, stabilising part, and that heroic part trying to take control to manage the pain of the emotion underneath, that hero part can be like the angry outbursts. And when we have those outbursts, we then feel guilty because the sensible part kicks back in. And they both try to suppress this emotional part. So there we have the inner turmoil, the internal drama triangle in a sense, somewhat analogous to. And so to understand and appreciate those, to truly overcome frustration, it's not going to be just about stopping getting angry. We need to find an appropriate way to release our emotions and to solve the struggle, to support the needs of that deep emotional part that may not be sensible, but it's down there saying it needs us to make some kind of change to support ourselves. So imagine now, if you're ready to begin this relaxation, sit up straight or lay straight with me. Really important to have that posture where you're sitting up straight the entire time we're talking. Taking a really deep breath. Where you're lifting up your lungs and your chest cavity and pushing out your stomach. Holding onto it until you almost get a little bit of a head spin. And releasing slowly. Feeling all the tensions drain as all your muscles just sink down like a sandbag settling into the earth. Taking another really deep breath until we almost get that head spin. That's just the sensation of oxygen giving a calming effect to the body, just like ambulance officers give that to people because it's a chemical that doesn't cause harm but releases a sense of relaxation. Release that breath slowly. Feel the body relax even further. If there's any other places in your body where you're holding tension, tense those up as you breathe in. As you breathe out, slowly let it go. Now imagine a calm, enjoyable place. This could be a desert island. This could be a castle in the sky. Make it something mythical, something really nice, as if you were a multi-billionaire and you could choose anything. Now I want to really strengthen that with some imaginary, heroic support people. This is going to be part of the patterns that we can use to call on internal resources and overcome anger later on in this script. So humour me for a moment. Imagine now a heroic protector figure, like a comic book style hero. Who would that be for you that you resonate with? Is it some wondrous woman or some extraordinarily muscular man with almost a little bit of recklessness in the way they defend you and support you? Which character might that be? Try to pick one from mythos, movies, comics. These are much more powerful characters than your best friend or grandmother. Now, also pick someone who is wise, like Confucius say. This person would be able to state the truth so plainly that it would permeate the very soul. That would be inescapable truths, that they would just make sense of everything. And you might not know what they say, but in your imagination, you'd have a sense of how they could extol wisdom in such a manner as to shock people with awe and wonder and make them see the truth and the light of a matter. Imagine who this could be for you. A lot of people will pick a wise person in their life, a best friend, an uncle. But now take that person and imagine who they would be as a character out of a movie or some other story. You want to make these really powerful characters that are extracted from your own personal experiences. Anyone that's actually in your life, there's always something you can't tell them because we have those different spheres of whom we are. Like you can't tell your mother about what's going on with your partner at times. So now that we've got the heroic support person and the wise person, pick one more. A deeply empathic nurturer like the fairy godmother from Cinderella or Mary Poppins. You may not be able to easily pick this one. It can be challenging for a lot of people to think of a nurturing figure. So just run with whatever you've got for now and come back to this later. You can change these characters at any time. Now imagine that place that you chose and all those characters being there. Are you on a desert island, in a forest, in a penthouse overlooking the ocean? Imagine what all those characters are doing there. Imagine the sounds. Imagine what you can see in the distance and nearby. Imagine what you might be doing. Imagine the fresh, relieving scent and taste of the air, and just the essence, aura, and other sixth sense feeling of being in that place. Really deeply connect with it. Take a deep breath. Just imagine enjoying that space. It's going to be an important one for this. We'll come back to this. And now, since we are practicing how to overcome frustration, briefly think of a situation that might frustrate you. Perhaps you've had a hard day. You step out of the room for a moment and someone takes control of the TV when you're in the middle of watching it and it was really working for you. You just needed to finish that. It's often something as simple and mundane as this that we can react to. And it's not even the other person's fault. And we feel pretty frustrated with ourselves afterwards. Imagine that situation very briefly. Don't labour on it too long. I'm not here to beat you up. The frustration emotion is normal. It releases chemicals that cause us to forget what we're doing. It turns off the part of our brain that has our morals, our conscious awareness, our personality. We act in an animalistic manner when this kicks into place. So, let's let that go briefly. And think now, firstly, about the physiological symptoms. Just pause the thoughts and the actual actions. There are physiological symptoms here that are really important to figure out. A lot of people say they go from 0 to 100 in a second. And that's their internal experience. Though as we start to look into it deeply, we can see that this is a chemical process. If we were to get a syringe of anger and inject it into someone, they wouldn't be angry instantly. It has to be absorbed by the body. So if we were to order those symptoms, they might clench their teeth, hold their shoulders tight. They wouldn't notice, but their ears would go red. Sometimes after I've said this, people start to notice the heat in their ears, or someone else will tell them about the red ears. But then after that, and some other symptoms in the body, they might start to have the thought of being frustrated with someone else. That's usually one of the main early warning signs that people pick. It's like a saucepan with boiling on the stove. It makes that first couple of lid clatters as it's boiling away. We have that thought, I better go and turn that down before it boils over. And maybe we leave it a little bit longer. And the frustration builds. Then we start to feel surging inside, fists clenching. Even if we're not going to hit anything, it just happens. It's part of the chemical process. And that will usually culminate to the point of no return for many, where they start to think of hyper-responsibility. That is, I feel I need to change this. Thoughts like, this person needs to stop it. They need to be told. How dare they? Someone needs to put them in their place. This hyper-responsibility to take action. That's often the last resort. It's like that moment that we all know, it's difficult to describe, when that saucepan lid's clattering away so hard from the boiling pot that we really have to run and stop it, or it's going to blow over and there's nothing we'll be able to do about it. Because after this point, or around the same time, people raise their voice. They start to say hurtful things. Their tone becomes really unpalatable. They get ashamed of the way that they're reacting then. And they find that it's really hard to stop. Partly because of fundamental attribution error, where we fundamentally have the tendency to attribute problems to others. Partly because of people's automatic reaction to defend themselves. So the other person starts to defend themselves, and then that escalates the situation. Partly because of our brain's negativity bias. It worries on purpose to keep it safe. That's one of its natural states. So, with all of these things stacked against us, we want to stack the deck in our favour. Find a point like this amongst those symptoms. It'll take some time as you reflect on the symptoms in doing this relaxation repeatedly. Find a point where you know you need to make a change and take a breath. Going back to that enjoyable space. Where are you? What are the supports doing now? Is a nurturer coming over? Provide you with some fresh fruit and water? Fan you with a palm frond maybe? Now let's take the magic of these extraordinary support people and bring them into that situation. Maybe the fairy godmother's got some sparkly fairy dust, or you're going to jump in Doctor Who's time machine. Just imagine taking them back there. Sure, first of all, that heroic protector is going to speak up. They might want to kick some butt. Who knows? But these heroes, they tend to speak their mind quickly and fairly. Like some with a lasso of truth and such like that. These heroes on our popular cartoons and stories, they try not to hurt people, but they do get their emotion out and let people know how hurt they are. And if all those supports are there, as powerful as they are, the wise person's quickly going to step in after that person's expressed their emotion in a reasonable way. The wise person's going to take over and try to say things sensibly. And the wise person's going to know that, like Buddha said, holding on to anger is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die. What they're saying is that if our anger is too strong, we're going to suffer. So, the wise person, if they can't get it out straight away, they may have some prearranged strategy within their partnership or family, or even just say, I just need to have a think about this for a moment, and go and step away. They may go to the bathroom. They may take out the trash. It's one of my favourite strategies for people. If you take out the trash, no one wants to follow you. And metaphorically, we're emptying a bin of all the rubbish and things we don't need, but we still have a dirty bin that we have to bring back to the house for the needs of everyone. And in the same manner, if we have a realistic strategy where we step away for a short time to do something productive and then come back with the things we need to address in a manner where we can address them with wisdom, then we're winning. You may not know right now for your chosen situation what the wise person would say. Sometimes we need to call on supports to figure out how to fairly approach a problem. And that's fine. Though, even if we have to come back without a full solution, or if we come back with a sensible solution and consistently implement our needs and boundaries so that we can eventually fairly achieve a proper outcome, the nurturer is going to step in at some point here. The nurturer is telling you to self-soothe throughout this process, to hold it together, to take these deep breaths, to hold part of your mind at that calm, safe space. And in fact, part of the reason we chose such powerful support people out of mythos, movies and comics is because this nurturer is a deep empath, such an amazing, caring person that they even care about the other person here. Even if they're entirely in the wrong, that empath is going to show you some wisdom in terms of saying, no matter how wrong they are, they're also in some kind of confused state, misguided state, or they're in pain and hurt. They've got some other emotion, some other need. And no matter how wrong they are, we'll never connect with them in a minute to communicate without trying to consider, where realistic, what nurturance they need. Perhaps that is just an acknowledgement. People always think they're not listened to because it's not stated that someone has heard. Perhaps that is all that is needed. If we come back with the wisdom of taking the trash out, that is taking some time out to refocus our thoughts, we've said, I'm pretty frustrated. I just need to take a short walk, process my thoughts, and come back with this in a short time. And then we come back and we're able to reflect listening to that other person, reflect empathy, reflect that we've heard them, even if they didn't speak. Reflect by saying, I can imagine you might feel like da-da-da-da-da, like this or that. I can imagine this is a hard situation for both of us. I'm guessing there might not be a solution. I really don't know where to go with this because I'm thinking you're feeling X, Y, Z. Whatever that may be, that empathic connection and appreciation of the other person's position. Then saying, I'm thinking we could do A, B, C. Or what if we tried da-da-da-da-da? Do you have any other ideas? It's a simple little format. I'm being hurt and I need some time out for a moment to think about this so I can be sensible and proud of myself, find the best solution for us. The second part, when we come back, I'm guessing that you're feeling X, Y, Z because of da-da-da-da-da. The third part, I want to try and make this work for everybody, to be fair, to be the right solution. It could be something like da-da-da-da-da. The final part, what do you think we could do? Or can we just at least try that for a little? Because I really don't see any other possible way. If this isn't a fair and reasonable option, it probably is time to seek some further support, perhaps from real resources in our life rather than these extreme imagined ones. Take a deep breath and imagine that these supports are now taking you to see the future, to see how well you've learnt these strategies from their consistent support by imagining this regularly. A lot of people, when they step outside this relaxation to run this process in their own mind, will forget this step. But it's actually the most important. Anger is such a childish, egotistical emotion that we can't escape because it's a part of our physiology. It's like a 2-year-old subconscious process. And we can't train a 2-year-old by saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. We have to guide them to the right thing and praise them for that. Just like training a dog. It doesn't get trained by being hit. It gets trained by being loved. And this frustrated part as well, if we can show it a new way and train the subconscious urge to show it, how proud these supports, these mythical supports would be of you when you're able to implement these strategies without their supports. And how proud you will be of yourself. And imagine who else will notice. Will it be one of your loved ones? Someone in the street? When they notice these situations occur where you rarely ever again, maybe never, will go from 0 to 100. But instead, as you gradually build to a realistic amount, you'll plainly express yourself, express your need for time out, collect yourself, find a solution. Then you'll return with a reasonable manner, and you may have to state the same thing over and over. expressing your boundary kindly and realistically so that the other person can be supported to train themselves out of their own habit. And then things will come to balance. You'll have the solution in mind. And for the fact that you've listened through to this, calmly going along, shows us that you have the capacity to achieve this. Because this is all it takes. Just some practice on this strategy. And in a short amount of time, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll start to see this manifesting in your own life. Who will be so proud that and amazed that they'll even start to turn to you and say, what did you do? How did you achieve this? Where can I learn this? 1, 2, 3, taking a deep breath. 1, stretch. 2, opening our eyes wide, looking around. 3, planning our day, going ahead, moving forward. Have a great day. Fully awake now.